Hey man, you was in there standing up while you were eating. When they bumped down on you, they asked you, is you under the 5 or is you a rapper? You said a rapper. I got facts about these, man. Hey man, I'm on your ass, man. You know what I'm talking about, man? Cause why, hold on, man. You ain't stand up? What, you ain't sit down? When it was time to stand on business? So you let a nigga basically get you, man, made you stand up and eat your food. I thought you supposed to sit down and eat. Man, he got the internet food, man. That nigga a hoe in jail, man. That nigga a buster, nigga. And I can get the penitentiary on the phone, nigga. For real.
Pooh Shiesty was sitting at the absolute top of the rap game. He had millions of streams, platinum plaques, and the entire city of Memphis at his back. But everything shifted the moment those federal charges hit in 2001. The streets were watching closely, waiting to see if that same energy he brought to his music would hold up behind bars. Here is what actually happened. While he was locked up, stories began leaking from inside the federal system that painted a completely different picture than what fans expected. We are talking about allegations that could ruin a street rapper's reputation forever. To understand how deep this situation really goes, we have to go back to the moment Pooh Shiesty first walked through those prison doors. But first, make sure you hit that like button to support the channel. Let's rewind to 2021. Pooh Shiesty was on fire. Back in Blood with Lil Durk was breaking the internet, and he was being hailed as the next king of Memphis. However, that federal case involving a shooting in Miami caught up with him fast. When he was eventually sentenced, the entire hip-hop world was tuned in. He took a plea deal in January 2022, pleading guilty to a single count of conspiracy to possess firearms in furtherance of violent and drug trafficking crimes. While the government was pushing for a 10-year sentence, his lawyers fought hard and managed to get him 63 months. I thought I actually understood the Memphis rap scene. We often view these artists as untouchable icons, but the reality is that once you're behind bars, that celebrity status offers zero protection. Imagine this. Pooh Shiesty, the same man who had everyone across the country blasting Back in Blood, is reportedly being cornered in federal prison. They say he's being forced to perform like a common entertainer just to have a peaceful meal. It gets even more intense. Rumors are circulating that without his crew and his Draco, he's being treated like a complete pushover. Stories are coming out about him being made to stand up during chow time like a kid in detention, while other inmates help themselves to his commissary. Word is, when the seasoned prisoners pressed him on whether he was a real one or just a rapper, he folded immediately. But here is where things take a massive turn. I've secured exclusive footage of a 32-year prison veteran who went live specifically to defend Pooh Shiesty's reputation. This OG is putting his entire street cred on the line, and what he has to say is going to completely change your perspective on what's actually happening inside those walls. No lies. By the end of this video, you'll see exactly who is telling the truth and why certain people in Memphis would rather watch their own star fall than see him win. This situation is incredibly deep, and I'm about to break down every single detail.
Rapper Pooh Shiesty is facing prison time after pleading guilty to a gun charge in Miami federal court. The case against Lontrell Williams Jr. stems from 3 shootings during the past 2 years, 2 of them happening right here in South Florida.
We aren't talking about county jail here. This was the big leagues, the federal system where your rap sheet doesn't mean a thing if you can't hold your own. Federal prison operates on its own set of rules and politics, and for a young artist out of Memphis, this was the ultimate test of his character. In the feds, there are different factions. You have the gangs, the geographical cliques, and those who remain unaffiliated. When a high-profile figure like Pooh Shiesty walks through those doors, everyone is watching to see exactly where he fits in. But this is where things get wild. Rumors began to circulate that Shiesty wasn't conducting himself like the street legend depicted in his lyrics. We're talking about the kind of allegations that represent a rapper's worst nightmare. According to various sources surfacing online, he was reportedly facing some intense pressure behind those walls. Inmates from Memphis started taking to social media claiming they had the real inside scoop on how Shiesty was actually handling himself. One specific voice from the city came forward with some explosive claims, alleging that Pooh Shiesty was being extorted and was even being forced to stand up while eating his meals like he was being disciplined. But that isn't even the wildest part. According to that same source, when the heavy hitters in the yard stepped to Pooh Shiesty and asked, "Are you one of the 5 or are you just a rapper?" basically asking if he was truly about that life or just an entertainer, he allegedly chose rapper. For any street artist, that is essentially an admission that you aren't really built for that environment. The Memphis streets immediately started buzzing. Here was a man who built his career rapping about sliding, shooting, and street politics, supposedly getting his card pulled in real time. The source didn't stop there either. He claimed Shiesty was being moved around, following orders from seasoned inmates, and basically being treated like prey. But here is where it gets truly intense. Another part of these allegations suggested that Pooh Shiesty was forced to freestyle and perform for other inmates just to get by. Think about that. The same artist pulling in millions of streams having to rap for his own safety behind bars. If true, that is a next-level type of humiliation. As his sentence continued, these stories kept circulating. Memphis blogs picked them up, the street talk intensified, and Shiesty's reputation took major hits while he wasn't even in a position to properly defend himself. According to the same inmate making these claims, Pooh Shiesty was ultimately labeled as a hoe and a buster within the federal system. For any rapper, especially one who built their entire brand on a tough image, these kinds of allegations can be career-ending. But there is one factor that often gets overlooked in these stories: the money. Pooh Shiesty entered the federal system as a platinum-selling artist with serious wealth, and in prison, money changes everything. While the average inmate has to survive on whatever the kitchen serves, a wealthy prisoner lives in a completely different reality behind those same walls. We are talking about a federal commissary account that never runs dry. In the feds, your people on the outside can deposit money into your account, and Shiesty had an entire label, a management team, and a loyal fan base ensuring his books were always full. When you have that kind of cash flowing in, you eat differently. You aren't just eating basic rations. You're talking about ramen noodles, stacked 6 deep, real tuna packs, honey buns, chips, and protein bars. Inmates can actually build entire meals out of commissary items that would honestly surprise you. Shiesty himself confirmed in interviews after his release that he was eating steaks behind bars. Not metaphorical steaks, but actual meat. When you understand the intersection of commissary and kitchen politics, it makes perfect sense. With enough money, you can pay other inmates to cook for you, trade for better cuts of food, and essentially run your own small-scale restaurant operation inside the facility. The man was never going hungry, not even close. But this situation goes much deeper than just what he was eating. In the federal system, money buys a level of peace that most people on the outside can't truly grasp. It allows you to purchase quality hygiene products instead of relying on the basic prison-issued items. You can get better shoes and clothes within the regulations. Essentially a better version of everything. When you're sitting on platinum royalties while everyone else is struggling, it completely shifts the dynamic of your incarceration. However, there's a side to this that rarely gets discussed. Commissary wealth can easily make you a target. When word gets out that an inmate has unlimited funds, it creates the exact environment where extortion attempts begin. This makes the question of whether Pooh Shiesty was pressured over his commissary much more complex. Having that kind of money in federal prison is simultaneously a blessing and a curse. Now, let's dive into the topic that really has the streets talking: the protective custody situation. This is a highly sensitive area because in prison culture, PC carries a stigma that can follow you forever. Protective custody means you are separated from the general population, either because you requested it or because the administration decided it was necessary for your safety. While that might sound reasonable on paper, in the world of prison politics, it is one of the most damaging labels an inmate can have. Rumors began to circulate that at some point during his sentence, Pooh Shiesty was placed in or near protective custody status. Whether that was his own choice or a decision made by the administration is a completely different conversation. When a high-profile celebrity enters federal prison, the Bureau of Prisons doesn't just toss them into the general population and hope for the best. They conduct a thorough security assessment, looking at who the person is, any potential enemies they might have inside, and what safety risks exist. For someone as famous as Pooh Shiesty, whose face is everywhere online, the administration has very real reasons to be cautious. Look at it from the prison's perspective. If a famous rapper is seriously injured or killed on their watch, it becomes a national news story and a massive liability. Because of this, sometimes protective custody isn't even a choice the inmate makes. The administration can place you there whether you like it or not. Regardless, you still have to deal with the stigma that follows. The streets, however, don't care about bureaucratic reasoning. In that world, PC means only one thing: you couldn't survive among the general population. That narrative started sticking to Pooh Shiesty's name while he was still locked up and unable to address it. Memphis blogs picked it up, gossip accounts ran with it, and suddenly the PC angle was lumped in with all the other allegations swirling around him. This is where it gets really interesting. Multiple accounts from people who were actually in the same facility at the same time have surfaced, and they contradict each other. Some claim Shiesty was in protective custody the entire time, while others swear they saw him in the general population, moving around just like anyone else. That contradiction alone should tell you that not everyone making these claims was actually there or telling the truth. Now, this is where the story takes a major turn. Once these allegations started gaining serious traction online, Pooh Shiesty finally had a chance to respond. Not directly, but through an OG who has been down for over 30 years. This veteran went on a live stream and essentially put his entire reputation on the line to defend Pooh Shiesty. We're talking about a man who has spent 32 years in the federal system. He's seen it all, done it all, and his respect is carved in stone. When someone with that kind of stature vouches for you, it carries immense weight. According to this OG, all those stories about Pooh Shiesty being extorted or pressured were complete lies. He stated that Shiesty stayed in his lane, minded his own business, and wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone. The OG made it clear that Shiesty was solid and that he never witnessed any of the strange behavior people were discussing online. Let's break down what actually happened when Pooh Shiesty spoke on his own prison experience. In interviews following his release, he described how he was cooking every single day behind bars, and not just standard prison noodles or basic commissary snacks. He was eating steaks. We're talking about real steaks, not some beef jerky substitute. When the interviewer asked for clarification, Shiesty made it crystal clear. He wasn't claiming to have high-end restaurant steaks, but he was definitely eating better than the vast majority of inmates. That alone tells you that either someone was looking out for him, or he had enough respect and resources to live comfortably. When you consider the amount of money on his books, it actually makes total sense. Shiesty also mentioned that his daily routine consisted of writing music constantly. While other inmates were getting caught up in prison politics, he was stacking verses and planning his comeback. That mindset right there reveals exactly where his priorities were. He even called into the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast during his sentence to talk about his experiences. Having that kind of access, being able to call into a major show from federal prison, doesn't happen for just anyone. That's the kind of move that requires resources, connections, and a certain level of freedom within the system. The OG who vouched for Pooh Shiesty explained it best. In federal prison, if you're moving the wrong way, everyone is going to know about it. The fact that a respected lifer was willing to put his name behind Shiesty says a lot about what actually went down. However, the Memphis streets weren't done talking. The same individual making the allegations came back even harder, doubling down on his claims that Shiesty was getting punked. He claimed he was rich before rap, had been all over the country, served multiple sentences, and knew real from fake when he saw it. Now, let's talk about something else that doesn't get enough attention. What it's actually like to be a celebrity in federal prison on a day-to-day basis. That experience is completely different from what a regular inmate goes through, and most people watching from the outside don't understand those dynamics at all. When you're famous and you step into federal prison, your reputation precedes you. The guards, the administration, and every other inmate already know exactly who you are. That celebrity status creates an environment where everyone wants something from you. Some inmates try to befriend you because they think it'll benefit them, while others want to test you, viewing your fame as a direct challenge to their own street cred. You have people who genuinely connect with you because they're fans of the music, but then you have those looking to extort you because they know you have deep pockets and outside connections. Navigating that minefield every single day, all while trying to stay sharp, avoid new charges, and keep your sanity, is the exact situation Pooh Shiesty walked into. The celebrity tax in federal prison is very real. Everyone expects a handout or a favor, and you have to figure out quickly who actually respects you and who is just running a game. Then there is the visitation aspect. Most inmates are lucky to see their family once a month, but a famous rapper has managers, lawyers, label executives, and family members constantly trying to get in. That kind of activity gets noticed by everyone in the facility. When the guards are calling your name for legal visits 3 times a week while other guys are just sitting there doing dead time, it creates a lot of tension. Some inmates see that and respect the hustle, but others grow resentful. And that doesn't even cover the phone situation. Federal prison phone time is both limited and expensive. However, when your account is loaded, you're buying minutes just like any other commodity. Shiesty was reportedly staying in constant contact with his team and his inner circle, remaining fully plugged into the music industry. That level of connectivity is a luxury that only money can provide, something the average inmate can only dream of. So we're left with 2 completely different narratives. On one side, you have Memphis inmates claiming Pooh Shiesty was getting his commissary stolen and being forced to stand while he ate. On the other, you have a 32-year federal veteran swearing that Shiesty was solid and that those stories were pure fiction. Here is what we know for a fact. Pooh Shiesty completed his time without any major reported incidents. If he were truly being pressured, as these allegations suggest, it's highly likely something would have surfaced in the media or through official court records. Incidents in federal prison are documented, especially when they involve high-profile prisoners. Furthermore, the claims that he had to freestyle for protection don't quite align with the reality of his experience. Shiesty has consistently maintained that he stayed focused on writing music and keeping a low profile. If he were actually being extorted for performances, it would tell a very different story than the one he's been sharing. Let's look at the psychology behind these rumors. Whenever a young, successful artist gets locked up, there are always going to be people eager to tear down their image. It's unfortunately a staple of the culture. When people can't reach that level of success themselves, they often try to dismantle those who have. The individual from Memphis making these claims seemed personally invested in ruining Shiesty's reputation, constantly bragging about being rich before rap and having served multiple sentences. It sounds like someone trying to manufacture street credibility just to invalidate another person's success. On the flip side, the prison veteran defending Shiesty had absolutely nothing to gain by lying. A man serving a life sentence isn't concerned with rap politics or social media clout. When a person in that position speaks up, it's usually because they've witnessed an injustice that bothered them. The fact that Shiesty returned home and immediately started going viral with new music says a lot. If he had truly been traumatized or broken down by his time inside, Would he have been able to bounce back so effortlessly? Within his first few days out, he was already hosting live streams and connecting with fans, looking every bit as confident as the day he went in. Another telling detail is that he never felt the need to do a formal defensive interview just to prove how tough he was behind bars. Many rappers return home and immediately begin sharing war stories about their time inside to rebuild their street cred. Pooh Shiesty didn't really do that. For the most part, he kept his prison experience private, which actually demonstrates more genuine confidence than trying to convince everyone how solid he was. This entire situation highlights a larger issue within hip-hop culture. Every time a young, successful artist gets locked up, the vultures start circling. People begin manufacturing stories to dismantle their image, especially when that rapper represents a level of success others couldn't reach. Memphis rap politics have been complicated for years. You have different neighborhoods, rival crews, and intense competition over who truly represents the city. When Pooh Shiesty blew up on a national level, it automatically made him a target for those who felt they deserved that spot. The allegations against him follow a familiar pattern. A successful artist goes away, stories leak about them being punked in prison, and their reputation takes a hit while they are unable to defend themselves. But when you truly investigate, most of these stories turn out to be false. Let's be real about prison politics. The federal system isn't like county jail where you're constantly being pressed for your commissary. Federal inmates serving serious time usually have much bigger things to worry about than extorting rappers. Most seasoned inmates are already established in their own situations. The idea that Pooh Shiesty was forced to freestyle for protection doesn't really hold up logically. If someone truly wanted to extort a rapper in federal prison, they wouldn't be demanding a performance, they would be demanding money on their books or connections on the outside. It is far more likely that Pooh Shiesty did exactly what the prison veteran described. He minded his business, stayed in his lane, and focused on his craft. For a young man with everything to lose, that is the smartest way to handle federal time. The fact that multiple people vouched for his character while the accusations came from those who seemingly resented his success points toward what the real story likely is. Now that he's home and making moves again, his actions speak louder than any prison rumors. He earned an early release through time served and good behavior. The government initially sought a 10-year sentence, but he served 3. That is a fact. You don't earn good behavior credits by getting caught up in drama or being extorted on your unit. However, there is a recent update that shifts the narrative once again, and it's a chapter many people are overlooking. After his release in October 2025, Pooh Shiesty barely had a moment to breathe before the system pulled him back in. He was placed in a residential re-entry center in Dallas as part of his supervised release, essentially a halfway house with strict movement restrictions. Then, just months after getting out, he was rearrested. While the details are still coming to light, supervised release violations can send you back behind bars faster than you might think. In early 2000, the FBI raided his family home in Memphis. When federal agents show up at your family's door, it's never a casual visit. They're looking for something specific. Whether this raid is connected to his recent rearrest or a completely separate investigation remains unclear. But the pattern here is impossible to ignore. The real conversation, however, is about the pressure he's under. Pooh Shiesty is only 25 years old. He came up in one of the toughest cities in the country and reached platinum status and national fame before most people his age have even found their footing. It's clear the legal system isn't finished with him. Whether that's because he's still involved in the streets or because his fame has made him a permanent target for law enforcement is hard to say for certain. In reality, it's likely a mix of both. Federal supervised release is incredibly restrictive. You face strict rules on where you can go, who you can talk to, and even what you can post on social media. For a young artist with the entire music industry pulling him back into the spotlight, navigating those hurdles while trying to rebuild a career is an almost impossible task. One minor slip-up can send you straight back to a cell. Federal prison is designed to break a person down, both mentally and spiritually. The fact that Pooh Shiesty emerged still creative, still connected to his fans, and ready to work shows he handled his time inside correctly. However, whether he can successfully navigate the streets on the outside is an entirely different test. And right now, the final verdict on that is still pending. The prison OG who vouched for him put it best, and the fakes don't. The fact that Pooh Shiesty made it through his sentence with both his sanity and his career intact tells you everything you need to know about how he carried himself inside. However, prison and the streets are two entirely different games, with two different sets of rules. At the end of the day, these types of prison allegations happen to almost every rapper who gets locked up. It's practically part of the lifestyle. What truly separates the real from the fake is how you respond once you return home. Shiesty responded by immediately making music, connecting with his audience, and moving like someone who grew from his experience rather than someone who was broken by it. Still, the chapter after prison might be the most difficult one he's ever had to write. So when people ask if I believe the stories about him being extorted, I simply look at the facts. He ate well because he had the resources. He survived because he was smart. He was vouched for by a man with absolutely nothing to gain. And most importantly, He came home early because his behavior was on point. The allegations, on the other hand, came from people who had everything to gain and no way to verify their claims. Survival in federal prison and survival in the real world require different skills. Right now, Pooh Shiesty is fighting that second battle in real time. The Memphis rap scene needs him. His entire journey, from platinum records and a prison sentence to his current struggles with re-entry, is exactly the kind of raw, real-life documentary his music has always aimed to represent. Whether this next chapter leads to redemption or another setback, one thing is for sure: everyone is watching. That is the real story behind how Pooh Shiesty was treated in prison, the financial dynamics behind those walls, the protective custody allegations, and the reality of his life since getting out. I want to hear from you in the comments. What do you think about these allegations? Do you believe the rumors, or do you trust the people who vouched for him? If this video gave you a new perspective, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into street stories, and turn on that notification bell so you never miss a drop. Until next time, stay solid.